to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. The White House clarifies the president's plan to rebuild Gaza. Meanwhile, President Trump met with the governors of Texas and California to discuss border security and wildfire aid.
Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to Capitol Hill as lawmakers are caught off guard by the president's proposal to take over and rebuild Gaza. We have the details.
The White House says it will strip federal funding from schools that let men compete in women's sports. We have the latest.
State Secretary Marco Rubio concludes his trip to Central America today in the Dominican Republic, what he's managed to do so far on his 5-country visit.
USAID's future is at risk. We take a look at the once obscure agency and why it's sparking so much criticism.
And a European luxury fashion brand considers making more products here in America. This as the EU shows signs it wants to avoid potential tariffs from the U.S.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD. I'm Carrie Dunst.
I'm Evelyn Lee. Today's Thursday, February 6th. Topping this morning's news, President Trump met with the governors of Texas and California yesterday. It comes as the White House seeks to clarify the president's stance on U.S. involvement in Gaza.
NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
We got some more clarification from the White House a day after President Trump suggested he wants the U.S. to take over Gaza and own it. The White House says that President Trump is not planning to use American taxpayer dollars to fund reconstruction efforts in Gaza, and nor is he committed yet to send any U.S. troops there. Watch.
The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him.
During a joint press conference with the Israeli Prime Minister, President Trump did not rule out sending troops as an option, saying he might if it's necessary. Watch.
Given what you've said about Gaza, did the U.S. send troops to help secure the security vacuum?
As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that.
And when asked about why President Trump would not rule out as an option, the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt told us that she believes it's part of Trump's negotiating tactics and he will make a deal on that, and adding that it's to keep the option open as leverage in negotiations. And meanwhile, Trump also proposed a mass and permanent resettlement for Palestinians living in Gaza. And the White House said he's seemingly walking it back, saying that Palestinians will only need to be temporarily relocated as the reconstruction efforts play out. But the White House does stress to us, though, that the U.S. is getting involved in the reconstruction efforts, and that is to ensure stability in the region, adding that President Trump is a great deal maker and will strike a deal with regional partners. President Trump met with the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and that's as Los Angeles is still recovering from wildfire damage. And during his meeting with Governor Greg Abbott of Texas to talk about, of course, border security. And Governor Greg Abbott told me after their meeting that he proposed to Trump several options about what Texas can offer him in securing the border, including, he says, 4,000 jail cells to detain illegal immigrants and more border walls, as well as what he says 2 military bases to house over 2,000 soldiers. He also told me that he told President Trump that illegal immigration in Texas has dropped to, quote, a mere trickle. And meanwhile, when it comes to the topic about Mexican troops to be deployed to the U.S. border with Mexico, Abbott told me that he expects 10,000 Mexican troops to bring an immediate end to illegal immigration. Watch.
Whenever Mexico does send troops to the border, it has an immediate impact, immediate reduction in the number of people crossing the border illegally. In the past, I've seen 1,000 or 2,000, not 10,000. If they do that, it'll have an enormous impact, and we will see an almost immediate elimination of any illegal border crossings.
And just earlier this week, Mexico agreed to send 10,000 National Guard troops to the northern border with the U.S. and that to help the U.S. stop the flow of illegal immigration and fentanyl into the U.S. And in exchange, President Trump agreed to pause his imminent 25% tariff on Mexican goods as part of the deal. And we have news that at least 1,000 of those Mexican troops have arrived at Mexico's northern border.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba will be traveling to Washington today. He plans to have his first in-person meeting this week with President Donald Trump.
Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement that Ishiba intends to build a relationship of trust and cooperation with the Trump administration and elevate the Japan-U.S. alliance to new heights.
And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be on Capitol Hill today to meet with Republican leaders. The meeting comes after lawmakers were surprised by President Trump's proposal to take over and rebuild the Gaza Strip. NTD's Melina Weisskopf joins us now to discuss. Melina, welcome to the show. Good morning. Good to see you. First, tell us what you know about the meeting today.
Hi, good morning, Evelyn. So first, Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with Republican leader John Thune at 10 a.m. Then he'll go and meet with House Speaker Mike Johnson as well. As of this point in time, details are quite scarce as for the topics that will be on the agenda for discussion. But we'll likely see some discussion about the $1 billion arms sale that Trump had prepared for Israel. But right now, Congress has on hold. And of course, a big topic of this conversation today will likely revolve around that new proposal from Trump to take over and rebuild the Gaza Strip. Just over the past 24 hours, this has caused quite the stir on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and that proposal from Trump yesterday did come as a surprise to many, and lawmakers have had rather strong reactions. Can you tell us where they stand on the possibility of U.S. control and military presence in the Gaza Strip?
There are definitely varied reactions, even among Republicans within Congress. You once again have a split between Senate Republican leadership and House Republican leadership. Senate Leader John Thune just described it as one idea, so not throwing his full support behind it so far, whereas you see House Speaker Mike Johnson describing it as a bold initiative and looking like he's open to trying to rally his conference on the House side behind this idea. Listen to what Johnson had to say.
It's a bold move, certainly, far bolder than what's been done before. But I think we've got to stand unequivocally in an unwavering manner, as the whip said, with Israel, our closest ally and friend in the Middle East. And I think if we could bring control of that situation and bring about a lasting peace there, it would do well for everybody, not just in the region, but around the world.
Now, like I said, Senate Republicans are more skeptical of the issue. You have Senator Lindsey Graham, for example, who says that he's not on board with the idea of sending U.S. troops into the area. And then you have others who are thinking about the fiscal side of it. You have Senator Josh Hawley, for example, who is skeptical about sending taxpayer dollars to helping to rebuild that area. So it looks like even among Republicans, Trump will definitely have more selling to do if this is really the path that he wants to take for the future of the Middle East. Democrats, although they have a generally opposed stance on this. House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries said that he wants a two-state solution, which has long been the foreign policy position of the United States. And then you have others that are taking a more stern approach to this. Here, listen to what the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Gregory Meeks, had to say about this, as well as another Democrat.
Billions or trillions of dollars that would be there. You're talking about going against all international norms where there's no one in the world, whether it be those immediately there, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, or even our European allies, or anyone that would agree to anything of this nature. It just makes no sense.
And then you have an even more sharp disagreement coming from Congressman Al Green of Texas. He wants to introduce articles of impeachment against Trump because of this proposal. It's yet to be seen whether this type of proposal will gain the steam of the entire Democrat conference. So we will be watching out for that as well. Back to you guys.
Well, thank you so much for that update. NTD congressional correspondent Melina Weisskopf, appreciate it. And now we're moving on. Conflicting statements coming from Panama and the United States.
The State Department saying U.S. government ships can cross the Panama Canal for free, while the agency that controls the passage says there is no such agreement. Here's more on Secretary of State Marco Rubio's Central American visit.
Following Secretary of State Rubio's visit to Panama earlier this week, the State Department Wednesday released a statement saying U.S. government vessels will now be allowed to transit the Panama Canal without being charged any fees. The department said the deal would save the U.S. millions of dollars a year. Soon afterwards, however, the Panama Canal Authority denied that claim, saying it's willing to establish dialogue with the U.S. regarding the transit of wartime vessels, but that it made no changes to its fees. Rubio was in Guatemala Wednesday, where he spoke to President Bernardo Arevalo. In a press conference, Arevalo said Guatemala would accept 40% more deportation flights from the U.S.
In this context, we commit to expanding the capacities so that more Guatemalan women and men can return to their home, to Guatemala, where we will receive them in a dignified manner and with greater opportunities. Within this framework, we have agreed to increase by 40% the number of flights of deported people, both of returned nationals and deportees of other nationalities, for their subsequent repatriation.
Rubio said the U.S. would help the country return non-Guatemalans to their homelands. Speaking in Guatemala, Rubio also sought to clarify Trump's controversial statements on Gaza.
It was not meant as a hostile move. It was meant as I think, a very generous move, the offer to rebuild and to be in charge of the rebuilding of a place, many parts of which right now, even if people move back, they would have nowhere to live safely because there are still unexploded munitions and debris and rubble.
Rubio also visited El Salvador and Costa Rica. In the former, he facilitated the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding and Cooperation for Nuclear Energy. And in Costa Rica, Rubio and President Rodrigo Chavez discussed illegal immigration, organized crime, and cybersecurity. The State Department says Costa Rica faces over 100 million cyber attacks every year. Many Central American nations rely heavily on American companies for cybersecurity. Rubio also announced a USAID waiver for Costa Rica. It comes 2 weeks after President Trump froze foreign aid funding across the globe. Rubio's last stop is the Dominican Republic. Rubio landed in the capital Santo Domingo Wednesday. In a document obtained by the Associated Press, the State Department says Rubio plans to announce the seizure of a plane belonging to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The plane is currently in the Dominican Republic. This comes after a U.S. envoy visited Venezuela last week to discuss the repatriation of illegal immigrants from Venezuela and the release of 6 Americans who had been detained in Venezuela. The U.S. seized one of Maduro's other planes last year. The U.S. says the planes used by Maduro to make foreign trips are in violation of U.S. sanctions. In another development, Rubio announced Wednesday the U.S. would not attend G20 talks in South Africa later this month. This comes after President Trump criticized the South African government for a new law that allows it to seize some land from owners without compensation. Rubio took to social media saying, quote, "South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, equality, and sustainability, in other words, DEI and climate change."
The Pentagon announces that the first high-threat immigrants have arrived at Guantanamo Bay.
That's as ICE reports it arrested 100 members of a Venezuelan gang in Colorado. NTD's Arian Pazdar has the immigration update.
Okay. The Pentagon announces that the first illegal immigrants have officially arrived at Guantanamo Bay. A statement reads that these 10 high-threat individuals are currently being housed in vacant detention facilities. That's to ensure the safe and secure detention of these individuals until they can be transported to their country of origin or other appropriate destinations. Photographs showed the immigrants in handcuffs as they were being prepared to board the plane to Cuba on Tuesday. Mexico's foreign minister commented on the U.S. sending some immigrants to Gitmo.
I can say that no Mexican will go there under any circumstances. We sent a diplomatic letter to the U.S. Embassy saying that we will receive every Mexican who wants to come.
This comes just a few days after Mexico agreed to improve border security. President Trump had previously warned he'd impose heavy tariffs if Mexico didn't help secure the border. The White House gave more details on Wednesday.
Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to permanently supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the U.S. border who will be specifically designated to stopping fentanyl and criminal aliens from pouring into our country.
Footage shows hundreds of Mexican soldiers being mobilized. They'll be posted to hotspots with high rates of illegal immigration and drug and weapons trafficking. Meanwhile, in Georgia,
I'm going to ask you again because you didn't give me a very definitive answer last time. Are you taking any medication?
check it out.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, conducted a targeted operation early Wednesday. They apprehended an alleged immigrant from Mexico with a criminal history. Officers say they found a weapon in his car and ammunition in his pocket.
We had a lot of officers out in the field today. They quickly surrounded the vehicle, jumped out, and were able to grab the subject pretty quickly. And that's when they found the firearm. So everything went smooth, but it could have gone really bad.
Also on Wednesday, ICE published this picture saying over 100 members of the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua were targeted for arrest and detention in Colorado. Officials say the investigations are still ongoing. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Mayors of some of the country's largest sanctuary cities will testify before Congress next month. So-called sanctuary cities often have policies that aren't in line with federal immigration laws.
The Democratic mayors of New York City, Chicago, Boston, and Denver have all agreed to be there.
Republican House Committee Chairman James Comer says the committee plans to press the mayors for answers for what he says are policies putting public safety at risk.
New York Mayor Eric Adams has said he would uphold existing sanctuary city laws, despite saying he's open to working with the Trump administration on illegal immigration.
And a federal judge in Maryland is now the second one nationally to block the Trump administration's executive order limiting birthright citizenship.
NTD's Arlene Richards has the details.
U.S. District Judge Deborah Boardman issued a nationwide preliminary injunction blocking President Trump's order limiting birthright citizenship from going into effect on February 19th as planned. 2 immigrant rights groups and 5 pregnant women had argued that their children were at risk of being denied U.S. citizenship based on their parents' immigration status. In siding with the plaintiffs, Boardman said during the hearing, "Today, virtually every baby born on U.S. soil is a U.S. citizen upon birth. That law and tradition are and will remain the status quo pending the resolution of this case." Trump's order, issued shortly after he assumed office, claims that the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause does not universally grant citizenship to everyone born in the United States. In particular, it argues that the phrase, "subject to the jurisdiction thereof," in the clause excludes children from illegal immigrants and other non-citizens from automatic U.S. citizenship. Boardman's order provided longer-term relief than an earlier 2-week pause imposed in January by a Seattle-based federal judge. That judge is set to consider whether to issue a long preliminary injunction on Thursday. A Justice Department lawyer asked for 60 days to respond to the injunction. It's unclear whether the Trump administration will appeal. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Coming up, the White House says it will strip federal funding from schools that let men compete in women's sports.
And USAID's future is at risk. We take a look at the once obscure agency and why it's sparking so much criticism. Stay with us.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Funny expression. There's a little scar right below his neck. The artist, on a trip to somewhere in South America, he met this kid who told him a story about himself. The technique is really good. As you'll see, like in the foreground, there's water on his face. The texture is so realistic, but then sort of in the back, you have these washed out colors, almost a sort of fantasy feel. The whole of the picture is very balanced, and you still get that sense of harmony and warm light from it. The artist, he was really moved by the child's spirit. The child's from the slums, and so he looks around and he sees people who either get into drugs or they get into gangs, and he doesn't want that for himself. So he was telling this artist about how he's going to make a better life for himself. The immense spirit and determination that the kid had really stuck with the guy, so that's why he painted such a large portrait of the child.
Many of us have been child fighters, but this little kid learned to defend himself in his own way. It's a great sacrifice that way. And so this is another form of strength, another form of endurance. We are capable of much more than we think. These children amaze us.
Welcome back. President Trump signs an executive order barring men from competing in women's sports.
And Pam Bondi is sworn in as U.S. Attorney General with remarks from the president. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
One of President Trump's latest executive orders will provide, quote, equal opportunity for women and girls and keep, quote, men out of women's sports.
Last year, a male cyclist posing as a woman competed in the 800-mile Arizona trail race, a very big deal in cycling, and obliterated the women's course record by nearly 5.5 hours.
A White House document says the executive order upholds the promise of Title IX and ends the dangers and unfair participation of men in women's sports.
We're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding.
While signing, Trump was joined by over 20 women and their daughters from parental rights advocacy group Moms for Liberty. Women's sports advocates Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon were there also. Other related actions Trump has taken since entering office include an executive order proclaiming that the U.S. government will recognize only two sexes, male and female, as well as an order to cut federal funding or support for gender transition surgeries for people under 19 years old. Title IX, passed in 1972, prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school or other education program that receives federal funding. And the U.S. officially has a new Attorney General. Pam Bondi was sworn in on Capitol Hill with Trump in attendance. The Senate confirmed Bondi on Tuesday, 54-46, with Democrat Senator John Fetterman joining Republicans in the vote. Bondi says she will make the country proud.
And I will restore integrity to the Justice Department, and I will fight violent crime throughout this country and throughout this world and make America safe again.
Trump says that he's confident Bondi will fulfill her duties.
But she's going to be fair, and she'll lead the Department of Justice in crushing violent crime, demolishing the gangs, which are all over the place.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Vice President J.D. Vance spoke to freedom lovers from all over the world yesterday.
They were gathered in Washington, D.C. for the International Religious Freedom Summit. NTD's Melina Weiskup brings us more.
Vice President J.D. Vance addressed the International Religious Freedom Summit with the message of how America was founded. He said this nation was founded on moral principles and said that the Trump administration is dedicated to solidifying and promoting religious freedom at home and abroad. Here's J.D. Vance earlier.
In America, our founding fathers rightly recognized this, listing freedom of religion first among the liberties enshrined in our great Constitution. Before he was elected president, John Adams, who was the first vice president, I might add, observed that politicians, quote, may plan and speculate for liberty, but it is religion and morality alone which can establish the principles upon which freedom can securely stand.
Some participants tell me they'd like to see the Trump administration impose sanctions on officials that violate religious freedoms in countries all over the world. Others tell me they'd like to see the Trump administration reenact the Abraham Accords to bring peace to the Middle East.
To maintain peace, stability in the Middle East and entire world, we need to go back to our source, our father Abraham. And then Muslim, Christians, and Jews are from the same family.
Others shared with me the urgency of rooting out communism as a major step to promoting freedom of belief.
Communism usually first goes for religion, and they want to abolish religion so that people don't have anything to believe in, and they try to strip that away as one of the first things under a communist regime.
And we heard a similar message from a group of students for Falun Gong, representing a spiritual group that's undergone persecution by the Chinese Communist Party for the past 25 years.
Dictator Jiang Zemin at that time saw the practice and its spiritual teachings as a threat to the communist rule, and so they ordered a crackdown on it in July 20th, 1999.
And they tell me that the persecution of this faith is now happening here at home, with media outlets spreading misinformation that mimics that of the Chinese regime.
Fact check everything that's coming out about Falun Gong, because what scares me and what is the most chilling is we've seen the exact same media misinformation talking points happen in China before the persecution began 25 years ago.
One view that we bring to this conference and to a discussion, particularly about prisoners of conscience or people who are imprisoned for their faith, is that we can resist.
The International Religious Freedom Summit group has already laid out a 7-page approach that they'd like to see the Trump administration take to be able to promote religious freedom at home and abroad. For example, they'd like to see Trump leverage foreign aid to be able to promote that religious freedom, as well as continue to provide aid for those who are persecuted abroad. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Several major U.S. companies are scaling back their DEI programs in response to increasing pressure.
Google has rescinded its diversity goals for leadership, while Target is ending its DEI initiatives. Those include support for Black employees and promoting Black-owned businesses. Meta is discontinuing its DEI team, focusing instead on fair practices for all. Meanwhile, Amazon has also paused some DEI programs.
McDonald's, Walmart, and Ford have made similar moves as well. They cite factors like the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action. Critics argue that such programs often discriminate, while supporters say they aim to correct systemic inequalities. West Point has shut down about a dozen Cadet clubs centered around race, gender, and sexuality. It comes as the Trump administration pushes to eliminate DEI programs across the federal government.
A memo from Chad Foster, deputy commander at the U.S. Military Academy, instructed the clubs to immediately stop operations and remove all public-facing content. Recent Defense Department guidance says efforts to divide the force erode camaraderie. All other cadet clubs have been ordered to pause operations pending a review. President Trump has recently praised the work of Elon Musk and the team he's assembled at the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. But Democrats are now pushing back, citing a conflict of interest for Elon Musk, as well as privacy, ethics, and legal concerns. Joining us now to discuss is Gerard Felitti, senior counsel at the Lawfare Project. Gerard, good to see you, and thanks for joining us this morning. Can you first clarify what is the status of Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency? What it is and what is not within their purview?
What we understand is that Elon Musk is an advisor to President Trump. He doesn't have a cabinet position. He was not confirmed by the Senate. He does not run an agency. The Department of Government Efficiency is basically a renamed Department of Digital Services. That's why this is perfectly legal to do. It's not the creation of a new agency. It's the renaming of an existing one. And the purview is to examine efficiency, to look at waste, as we have seen him do most recently with the USAID program. So this is all within the purview of the office of the president to have consultants, to have advisors, to have people who are looking at the government for efficiency and for other reasons and reporting back to the president who can then take action. This is perfectly within what's understood as the powers of the presidency.
Now, you mentioned the controversy escalating on Doge with the USAID audits and disclosures. Can you summarize what was uncovered and how it is that Doge was the first to really shine a bright spotlight into it?
What was uncovered were billions of dollars of money going to programs in other countries that are at best questionable and at worst have nothing to do with serving United States interests, but rather is a slush fund for non-government agencies, non-government organizations to put on programs that have nothing to do with furthering America's political or economic interests, but rather go into tourism in Egypt or transgender operas in other countries. This is the waste that was uncovered by Musk and his team. And why we haven't seen this before, quite frankly, is that's a question for Congress to take up. There are inspector generals within the United States government. This is part of their jobs to make sure that things are being spent in accordance with what Congress authorizes. And when you see programs that are wasteful, you have to wonder why no one else has looked at it. But then again, no one else has been appointed before by a president specifically for this purpose. This is why we're uncovering all these shocking details.
Now, Democratic leadership say they will introduce legislation they are calling Stop the Steal to thwart the work of Musk and the Doge, despite what you just shared in their ability to find wasteful spending. They cite what they call unelected people that are accessing private data and, quote, attempts to steal taxpayer money. What's your take on that?
I think that's the continuation of lawfare by the Democrats against President Trump. I think this is the obstruction of government functioning that Democrats put up whenever there's a Republican president that has agendas contrary to their own. It's almost laughable. There's no one stealing money. This is money that belongs to the American taxpayer. And by stopping these programs, that money is no longer being wasted. So the premise itself is ridiculous that someone is somehow stealing money. Now, again, the president has the right to appoint advisors. He has the right to appoint counselors. This is a tradition that goes back many, many administrations. This is not something new. President Biden did this. President Obama did this. President Clinton did this in recent memory. So this is not something that's so shocking and out of this world that a president would have someone looking at efficiency or looking at anything else. Remember, the president can also dictate that someone have security clearances who is not somehow elected or appointed. This is the way that government functions. Not everyone who works for the government actually works in the government. So Elon Musk is doing what other people have done for many, many decades.
And Gerard, with our last 30 seconds, what powers does the executive branch have on fiscal austerity versus the power of the purse that's supposed to sit with the lower house of Congress?
Well, there's a lot of power here, especially when it comes to fraud and abuse, which is something that's prohibited as well by law. But ultimately, when you have certain programs that have not been explicitly authorized by Congress, for example, Congress never authorized $7 million to go to further Egyptian tourism or to go to transgender operas. That was never specifically line item approved by Congress. So in this case, the executive can go in and say, this is not what Congress intended, so we are stopping this program. That's the waste, that's the abuse, and that's what Donald Trump is doing.
Appreciate your analysis this morning, Gerard Flitti, Senior Counsel with the Lawfare Project. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And up next, Chinese AI startup Deepseek may be sending user data to China's government, not just your AI prompts, but all your web activity.
was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love is the majority. Filling up something far more important than any feed. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our every day with understanding, empathy, and compassion. Leaving hate to become what it truly is, a whisper.
Welcome back.
If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines.
President Trump met with California Governor Gavin Newsom yesterday to discuss the ongoing fire recovery in Los Angeles. Trump also met with Texas Governor Greg Abbott to talk about border security. Governor Abbott suggested more jails and border walls, as well as 2 military bases to house more soldiers.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is expected to meet with U.S. lawmakers today to discuss details on arms sales and Trump's proposal to take over and rebuild Gaza. House Speaker Mike Johnson called the move bold, while Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries opposed Trump's idea and instead is suggesting a 2-state solution.
The U.S. and the Panama Canal Authority released conflicting statements on the use of the canal. Rubio concludes his 5-nation tour of Central America today in the Dominican Republic. Rubio has met with leaders to discuss issues from illegal immigration to nuclear power and cybersecurity.
Trump signed the No Men in Women's Sports executive order banning men from women's sports. Schools that fail to comply with will face federal investigations and could lose federal funding.
Once a low-profile agency, USAID is now a flashpoint in a fight over presidential power.
NTD's Daniel Monahan takes a closer look at the organization that is igniting all the debate.
Founded in 1961 under President John F. Kennedy, USAID employs 10,000 people and manages a $50 billion budget and is widely known as a form of American soft power. Supporters call it vital, critics call it wasteful. Now the Trump administration and Elon Musk's budget-slashing Department of Government Efficiency are moving to dismantle it. USAID offices were shut on February 3rd, most employees placed on leave, and plans announced to merge it into the State Department. Democrats call it an abuse of power and vow to fight. On Monday, the White House cited USAID projects it called wasteful. $1.5 million for workplace diversity in Serbia, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, and $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. Representative Wesley Hunt pointed to more, including $56 million for tourism in Egypt and Tunisia, and $27 million for deportee reintegration gift bags, likening USAID spending to a reckless child with a credit card. A February 1st study by the Middle East Forum think tank found USAID gave $122 million to groups linked to terrorist organizations, including Hamas. A July 2024 Inspector General report flagged oversight failures. Senator Joni Ernst accused USAID of obstructing scrutiny, citing mismanagement and refusals to disclose costs. She also said the agency sent nearly $1 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which the CIA believes was the most likely source of COVID-19. The Trump administration announced on Tuesday that nearly all USAID workers will be pulled from the field. The order takes effect Friday at midnight, giving staff 30 days to return unless deemed essential. Non-essential contractors will be fired. Dr. Atul Gawande, former USAID Assistant Administrator for Global Health, warned the cuts will harm global health efforts.
These are programs that range from eradicating polio to fighting outbreaks that are occurring right now. Bird flu monitoring is being shut down.
Doctors of the World Turkey say USAID's stop work order forced them to close 12 field hospitals and lay off over 300 staff in northern Syria.
Close all the clinics, stop all your doctors and all your healthcare professionals, and you are not providing any more services to women, children, elderly.
The organization provides medical aid to northern Syria, including Aleppo, as well as Gaza. Democrat lawmakers gathered outside the Capitol on Wednesday to protest the shutdown of USAID.
We will fight their violation of civil rights laws. We will fight their violations of separation of powers.
Make no mistake about it. Elon Musk's effort to dismantle the Agency for International Development is a gift to China. It's a gift to Russia.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday the Trump administration was reaching out to USAID missions overseas to select programs that will be exempted from the sweeping stop work orders. The criteria for exemptions will be whether or not a program furthers U.S. national interests and is aligned with them.
What would be a gift to our geopolitical rivals is billions of dollars in foreign aid that is not aligned to the national interest and the foreign policy of the United States.
Rubio says USAID has provided very little cooperation.
In fact, we had individuals, even after the orders were issued, that were still trying to push payments through in contravention and in direct insubordination.
While shutting down USAID could save tax dollars, critics warn of vital foreign aid being caught in the crossfire. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Chinese AI startup Deepseek may be sending user data to China's government. That's what cybersecurity
experts have found, and not just your AI prompts, but even all the web activity. Can you believe that? Here's the story.
Cybersecurity experts have found that Deepseek's code can transfer user data to the Chinese government. Deepseek is a Chinese AI firm that made an AI chatbot. This isn't just data from chatting with Deepseek's AI, but all web activity, from Google searches to most visited websites.
They even collect keystroke information, which means that if someone is maybe logging into a website, keystroke information could allow them to extract credentials, login credentials.
Cybersecurity expert Star Cashman says there's good reason to be concerned about Deepseek's security. Ontario-based cybersecurity firm Fairwood Security says it decrypted parts of Deepseek's code, finding what looks like hidden programming. The code sends user data to Chinese website cmpassport.com, which is owned by China Mobile, a firm the FCC banned in 2019. Deepseek also creates a digital fingerprint for every user, which can track web activity. Fairwood Security's findings have been deemed true by multiple cybersecurity experts.
100% accurate from our experience in counterintelligence. Same with other apps from China, TikTok, Temu, Shein, other apps. There's literally hundreds of those. They are weaponized to send all of your data back to the CCP.
Cybersecurity expert Casey Fleming says Deepseek should be banned. The U.S. Navy banned Deepseek late January. Senator Josh Hawley has introduced the bill that may ban Deepseek nationwide.
South Korea, Australia, and Taiwan have restricted government employees from using China's Deepseek AI app.
All three countries say it poses a security risk.
South Korea's foreign ministry says it has restricted access to Deepseek in computers connected to external networks. This makes it the latest country to take action against the app.
Australia is banning Deepseek from all government systems. Its Home Affairs Minister says the government is taking action to protect national security interests. Earlier this week, Taiwan banned all government departments from using Deepseek. The Taiwanese premier said the move was to ensure the country's information security.
All 67 victims from last week's mid-air collision between a commercial jet and a Black Hawk helicopter have been recovered from Washington's Potomac River.
Unified Command says all the victims have now been identified.
The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner is working to return the remains to their families. Meanwhile, crews continue to clear the wreckage site. They are expected to remove all major components from the jet today. Then they will begin removing the helicopter debris. Also today,
lawmakers will meet with officials from the National Transportation Safety Board and Federal Aviation Administration on Capitol Hill. And figure skating tribute Legacy on Ice will be held on March 2nd at the Capital One Arena in D.C. to support victims of the collision. The crash killed 28 members of the figure skating community. Staying with aviation, an incident at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, authorities say a wing of a Japan Airlines jet struck the tail of a parked Delta Airlines plane just yesterday. The Federal Aviation Authority paused some flights to the airport following the collision and said it will investigate what happened. It occurred on a taxi lane while the Delta Boeing 737 was waiting to have ice removed from its exterior. There were 142 passengers on board the Delta plane. Delta said there were no reports of injuries. Japan Airlines did not immediately respond to an emailed request for comment. And coming up, a European luxury fashion brand considers making more products here in America. This as the EU shows signs it wants to avoid potential tariffs from the U.S.
A painting that has true beauty. I imagine it's like a door. The artist holds the key to open the door and bring people to a purer world. A world where people are more compassionate.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Thanks for staying with us. More European luxury brands are considering making their items here in the U.S. A trade deficit with Europe has President Trump contemplating more tariffs.
On Tuesday, the European Union said they want to engage swiftly with the U.S. to avoid that possibility. Luxury label LVMH has already hinted at manufacturing in the U.S. NTD Sean Marshall has more on the prospect of European luxury brands made in the USA.
LVMH CEO Bernard Arnault has sparked a debate over France's attractiveness for business. In post-earnings remarks late on Tuesday, the billionaire said his company, known for its high-end products made in France and Italy, has been seriously considering bulking up its production capacities in the United States. Retail strategist and CEO of Retail Boss, Janelle Alvarado, shared with me her thoughts about luxury American-made items possibly becoming more of a trend.
So we're going to continue to see this, and is it something that luxury brands should or should not do? I think it's always been something that has been maybe not in the forefront as a lot of their products are made and known for being produced internationally in Italy and Paris, right? Known for their high craftsmanship. The perceptions have been changing where Americans do see that brands could be a premium product made in U.S. It doesn't have to just be an overseas made product to have quality.
The LVMH CEO cited a wind of optimism in the U.S. that contrasted with a cold shower of potentially higher corporate taxes in France. But any move to production on the other side of the Atlantic would likely be limited in scope, said LVMH investors. But how might Americans feel about luxury brands traditionally produced in Italy and France being made in America?
Customers are a little bit changing in their mindset of what luxury really means. And I feel like the U.S., especially made in America products, is starting to catch on as something that can be a place where premium product is made. And also that customer has more peace of mind that it's being crafted in a more sustainable as well as fair way.
LVMH already has 2 sites in California, opened in 1990 and 2011, and a factory in Texas opened in 2019. It also acquired jewelry workshops with the company's $16 billion purchase of American label Tiffany & Company in 2021. The LVMH CFO told reporters on Tuesday American clients accept made in the U.S., so we can consider the United States. European Union Trade Chief Maros Shevkovich also said on Tuesday, quote, "We are ready to engage immediately, and we hope that through this early engagement, we can avoid the measures which would bring a lot of disturbance to the most important trade and investment relationship on this planet." Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Hundreds of football fanatics descended on the NFL Super Bowl experience fan zone at the convention center in New Orleans yesterday.
Fans donned their favorite team's jerseys, walked the floor, and participated in NFL skills drills.
Oh, that's great, man. Get to have this type of experience, take the family out, let them have fun. It's always great to have a Super Bowl. You get the best of the best come play in your hometown, It's a great experience.
Because if they win, it's going to be 3 times in a row, and also I like them. And I just really, because they have Mahomes.
I'll be pulling for the Eagles because of the NFC. My little boy wants Chiefs to win because he loves Mahomes, but I'll stick with the NFC.
It's been awesome the whole time. Yesterday, me and my son got to go hang out in the French Quarter for a while, do some tours, eat a ton of great food, and then we've been here today. So it's been amazing.
The Kansas City Chiefs are making their 5th Super Bowl appearance in 6 years. They aim to capture an unprecedented 3rd consecutive championship. They'll face the Philadelphia Eagles for the 2nd time during their current run.
Tourism officials expect around 200,000 visitors to come into the city for the week-long celebration leading up to the big game. The events will include a Mardi Gras-style Super Bowl parade through the French Quarter on Saturday morning, and that will feature the famed Budweiser Clydesdales.
And move over experts, the winner of the Super Bowl has already been chosen.
Not by sports analysts, but by a pride of lions that were rescued from Ukraine.
Yes, you heard that right. These football gurus made their choice in an unorthodox way by knocking over a toy goalpost. The obvious interpretation, the Chiefs will crush the Eagles this Sunday.
4 lions arrived at the Wildcat Sanctuary in Sandstone, Minnesota 3 years ago. They were found as cubs in a duffel bag at a train station in Ukraine. According to the sanctuary, they've taken to their new country with gusto, and that apparently includes adopting America's most popular sport.
Look, they don't seem too sure, though, so maybe it's a close game.
I don't know. I don't know how a groundhog predicts whether we'll have more winter, and I'm not really sure how these very adorable animals are going to predict the outcome of the Super Bowl, but, why not?
Yeah, hey, would I bet money on it? No, but I'm not here to judge, so...
Hey, football and big cats,
Exactly.
looks like good TV to me.
Exactly. All right, let's head to a quick break. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that I would never be able to get over it and that my kids wouldn't have a father. I overdosed on heroin and I lived. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. For the longest time, fear held me back from ultimately being who I wanted to. I found the fatherhood program, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. My desire to change had finally outweighed my desire to stay the same. I felt powerless for so much of my life that it's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. For the first time, I finally feel like I'm exactly where I should be, where I want to be.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. The White House clarifies the president's plan to rebuild Gaza. Meanwhile, President Trump met with the governors of Texas and California to discuss border security and wildfire aid.
The White House says it will strip federal funding from schools that let men compete in women's sports. We have the latest.
State Secretary Marco Rubio concludes his trip to Central America today in the Dominican Republic, what he's managed to do so far on his 5-country visit.
USAID's future at risk. We take a look at the once obscure agency and why it's sparking so much criticism.
Controversy over stained glass windows. A French Heritage Association is suing to stop Notre Dame's new contemporary windows. It argues they would significantly disrupt the cathedral's original beautiful design.
And runners from around the world gather in Copenhagen to celebrate a Danish festival with half marathon filled with pit stops at 9 famous bakeries around town.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Greetings, welcome to NTD. I'm Carrie Dunst.
I'm Evelyn Lee. Today is Thursday, February 6th. Topping this morning's news, President Trump signs an executive order barring men from competing in women's sports.
And Pam Bondi is sworn in as U.S. Attorney General with remarks from the president. NTD's correspondent Jason Blair reports.
One of President Trump's latest executive orders will provide, quote, equal opportunity for women and girls and keep, quote, men out of women's sports.
Last year, a male cyclist posing as a woman competed in the 800-mile Arizona trail race, a very big deal in cycling, and obliterated the women's course record by nearly 5.5 hours.
A White House document says the executive order upholds the promise of Title IX and ends the dangers and unfair participation of men in women's sports.
We're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding.
While signing, Trump was joined by over 20 women and their daughters from parental rights advocacy group Moms for Liberty. Women's sports advocates Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon were there also. Other related actions Trump has taken since entering office include an executive order proclaiming that the U.S. government will recognize only 2 sexes, male and female, as well as an order to cut federal funding or support for gender transition surgeries for people under 19 years old. Title IX, passed in 1972, prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school or other education program that receives federal funding. And the U.S. officially has a new Attorney General. Pam Bondi was sworn in on Capitol Hill with Trump in attendance. The Senate confirmed Bondi on Tuesday, 54-46, with Democrat Senator John Fetterman joining Republicans in the vote. Bondi says she will make the country proud.
And I will restore integrity to the Justice Department, and I will fight violent crime throughout this country and throughout this world and make America safe again.
Trump says that he's confident Bondi will fulfill her duties.
But she's going to be fair, and she'll lead the Department of Justice in crushing violent crime, demolishing the gangs, which are all over the place.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
During her confirmation hearing, Pam Bondi encountered strong opposition from Democrats concerned about her ability to remain independent from President Trump. Bondi said on Fox News back in 2023, quote, "When Republicans take back the White House, the Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted, the bad ones. The investigators will be investigated." Yet in her confirmation hearings, she said, quote, "No one has been prejudged, nor will anyone be prejudged if I am confirmed." Joining us to discuss Pam Bondi and the DOJ under Trump's administration is Zach Smith, former federal prosecutor and a legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Zach, it's good to see you. What do you expect to be Pam Bondi's first actions as Attorney General?
Well, it's good to be on the show this morning. Thanks for having me on. Look, Pam Bondi got right to work on day one as soon as she was sworn in. She issued a flurry of directives for DOJ and DOJ attorneys. She set up task force to examine DEI in the Department of Justice to abolish that. She redirected a lot of the department's resources to focus on the president's priority in enforcing our nation's immigration laws. She also set up task force to look at how the DOJ might have been weaponized under the Biden administration and to look into the collaboration or collusion that took place between DOJ lawyers and Alvin Bragg in Manhattan or Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. And she also made it a focus to ensure that DOJ lawyers are faithfully doing their duty and carrying out the president's agenda. And she made clear that efforts to undermine that agenda or stonewall it in any way will simply not be tolerated during this administration. So it's clear she has her work cut out for her. I think she's off to a fantastic start so far, and I look forward to seeing what else she'll implement in the coming weeks and months.
Now, you mentioned the weaponization, going after nonviolent Jan 6ers and the cases directly against Trump. What do you expect her to do in regards to those issues?
Well, I think she's doing exactly what she pledged she would do during her confirmation, which is to look at the facts and circumstances and to find out what happened. Look, the fact is right now, despite years of efforts by Congress and other entities to get information related to this collaboration, this collusion, to find out what types of resources were devoted to the prosecutions of Donald Trump, to find out what types and how many resources were devoted to the prosecution of these January 6th defendants, the fact is, there's still a lot we don't know. And so I think all Pam Bondi's order did on day one was set the wheels in motion so that she and we, the American people, can get this much needed information.
What can you share with us about Trump's vision for the Department of Justice and what opposition might he encounter, him and Bondi?
Well, I think certainly he has pledged, as Pam Bondi has pledged, to restore integrity and impartiality to the Department of Justice under Joe Biden and under Attorney General Merrick Garland. Even though they paid lip service to those notions, we certainly did not see that. And I think we heard in Pam Bondi's remarks, she also intends to reorient the department's mission to focus on violent crime, to focus on serious national security threats like China and the fentanyl that's flowing across the borders due to China and Mexico and other countries as well. And then to make sure that the president's priority of immigration enforcement is also a priority for the DOJ, its law enforcement agencies, and its attorneys.
Now, Trump tapped Harmeet Dillon, who will need Senate confirmation, to lead the department's Civil Rights Division. His administration has begun rooting out DEI initiatives inside of the federal government. Do you expect him to go after the business world and other entities outside of the federal government on this particular issue?
Well, it's certainly within the realm of possibility. Look, DEI essentially means discriminating against people because of their race or ethnicity. That's something we should all agree is inappropriate and was outlawed by our civil rights laws. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the view of the Biden administration and others in academia and the business world for many years now. And I do suspect many in the business world are likely facing some level of liability for their discriminatory practices. I also suspect Harmeet may take a close look at academia and higher education and whether those institutions that have treated students differently based on race, whether they will face liability under our nation's civil rights laws, and it's an appropriate and good thing for her to do so. Look, Harmeet has a strong track record on enforcing civil rights laws, making sure everyone is treated fairly regardless of their race, their religion, their ethnicity, and again, that's a much needed and very welcome change at the Justice Department.
And as we finish up, it looks like Gail Slater has been tapped by Trump to lead the department's antitrust division. In terms of the DOJ, Trump has come out in support of Google, who is facing antitrust initiatives. Do you expect the DOJ to change course on that particular case? And are there any other major antitrust suits that could come about over the next year or two?
We'll certainly have to wait and see. Obviously, antitrust enforcement is a hotly contested issue right now. The big issue in the Google case in particular, Google was found liable of monopolization. Now, I suspect Google will appeal that verdict, but the issue right now is what remedy should be enforced. Should a court order Google to be broken up? Should it order certain divestitures? It's a very complex issue. It's a very contested issue. And keep in mind, too, that in the United States, antitrust enforcement is generally divided between the Antitrust Division at the Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission. Andrew Ferguson, who the president recently appointed as chairman of the Federal Trade Commission, I know has been taking a hard look at all of his predecessors' work. And so I think we'll have to stay tuned and wait and see exactly how both the Justice Department and the FTC will deal with many of these cases, particularly the ones involving big tech or other big businesses in the United States.
Well, we appreciate your analysis this morning. Zach Smith, former federal prosecutor, as well as legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Thanks, Zach. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me on.
Once a low-profile agency, USAID is now a flashpoint in a fight over presidential power.
NTD's Daniel Monahan takes a closer look at the organization that is igniting all the debate.
Founded in 1961 under President John F. Kennedy, USAID employs 10,000 people and manages a $50 billion budget and is widely known as a form of American soft power. Supporters call it vital, critics call it wasteful. Now the Trump administration and Elon Musk's budget-slashing Department of Government Efficiency are moving to dismantle it. USAID offices were shut on February 3rd, most employees placed on leave, and plans announced to merge it into the State Department. Democrats call it an abuse of power and vow to fight. On Monday, the White House cited USAID projects it called wasteful. $1.5 million for workplace diversity in Serbia, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, and $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. Representative Wesley Hunt pointed to more, including $56 million for tourism in Egypt and Tunisia, and $27 million for deportee reintegration gift bags, likening USAID spending to a reckless child with a credit card. A February 1st study by the Middle East Forum think tank found USAID gave $122 million to groups linked to terrorist organizations, including Hamas. A July 2024 Inspector General report flagged oversight failures. Senator Joni Ernst accused USAID of obstructing scrutiny, citing mismanagement and refusals to disclose costs. She also said the agency sent nearly $1 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which the CIA believes was the most likely source of COVID-19. The Trump administration announced on Tuesday that nearly all USAID workers will be pulled from the field. The order takes effect Friday at midnight, giving staff 30 days to return unless deemed essential. Non-essential contractors will be fired. Dr. Atul Gawande, former USAID Assistant Administrator for Global Health, warned the cuts will harm global health efforts.
These are programs that range from eradicating polio to fighting outbreaks that are occurring right now. Bird flu monitoring is being shut down.
Doctors of the World Turkey say USAID's stop work order forced them to close 12 field hospitals and lay off over 300 staff in northern Syria.
Close all the clinics, stop all your doctors and all your healthcare professionals, and you are not providing any more services to women, children, elderly.
The organization provides medical aid to northern Syria, including Aleppo, as well as Gaza. Democrat lawmakers gathered outside the Capitol on Wednesday to protest the shutdown of USAID.
We will fight their violation of civil rights laws. We will fight their violations of separation of powers.
Make no mistake about it. Elon Musk's effort
to dismantle the Agency for International Development is a gift to China. It's a gift to Russia.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday the Trump administration was reaching out to USAID missions overseas to select programs that will be exempted from the sweeping stop work orders. The criteria for exemptions will be whether or not a program furthers U.S. national interests and is aligned with them.
What would be a gift to our geopolitical rivals is billions of dollars in foreign aid that is not aligned to the national interest and the foreign policy of the United States.
Rubio says USAID has provided very little cooperation.
In fact, we had individuals, even after the orders were issued, that were still trying to push payments through in contravention and in direct insubordination.
While shutting down USAID could save tax dollars, critics warn of vital foreign aid being caught in the crossfire. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Several major U.S. companies are scaling back their DEI programs in response to increasing pressure.
Google has rescinded its diversity goals for leadership, while Target is ending its DEI initiatives. Those include support for Black employees and promoting Black-owned businesses. Meta is discontinuing its DEI team, focusing instead on fair practices for all. Meanwhile, Amazon has also paused some DEI programs.
McDonald's, Walmart, and Ford have made similar moves as well. They cite factors like the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action. Critics argue that such programs often discriminate, while supporters say they aim to correct systemic inequalities. Moving on, West Point has shut down about a dozen Cadet clubs centered around race, gender, and sexuality. It comes as the Trump administration pushes to eliminate DEI programs across the federal government.
A memo from Chad Foster, deputy commander at the U.S. Military Academy, instructed the clubs to immediately stop operations and remove all public-facing content. Recent Defense Department guidance says efforts to divide the force erode camaraderie. All other cadet clubs have been ordered to pause operations pending a review.
And coming up, the first round of illegal immigrants being sent to Guantanamo Bay is underway. We have analysis on the situation with a former senior CIA operations officer.
And the White House clarifies the president's plan to rebuild Gaza. Meanwhile, President Trump met with the governors of Texas and California to discuss border security and wildfire aid.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first round draft pick. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father and as a husband. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome back. Conflicting statements coming from Panama and the United States.
The State Department saying U.S. government ships can cross the Panama Canal for free, while the agency that controls the passage says there is no such agreement. Here's more on Secretary of State Marco Rubio's Central American visit.
Following Secretary of State Rubio's visit to Panama earlier this week, the State Department Wednesday released a statement saying U.S. government vessels will now be allowed to transit the Panama Canal without being charged any fees. The department said the deal would save the U.S. millions of dollars a year. Soon afterwards, however, the Panama Canal Authority denied that claim, saying it's willing to establish dialogue with the U.S. regarding the transit of wartime vessels, but that it made no changes to its fees. Rubio was in Guatemala Wednesday, where he spoke to President Bernardo Arevalo. In a press conference, Arevalo said Guatemala would accept 40% more deportation flights from the U.S.
In this context, we commit to expanding the capacities so that more Guatemalan women and men can return to their home, to Guatemala, where we will receive them in a dignified manner and with greater opportunities. Within this framework, we have agreed to increase by 40% the number of flights of deported people, both of returned nationals and deportees of other nationalities, for their subsequent repatriation.
Rubio said the U.S. would help the country return non-Guatemalans to their homelands. Speaking in Guatemala, Rubio also sought to clarify Trump's controversial statements on Gaza.
It was not meant as a hostile move. It was meant as I think, a very generous move, the offer to rebuild and to be in charge of the rebuilding of a place, many parts of which right now, even if people move back, they would have nowhere to live safely because there are still unexploded munitions and debris and rubble.
Rubio also visited El Salvador and Costa Rica. In the former, he facilitated the signing of a memorandum of understanding and cooperation for nuclear energy. And in Costa Rica, Rubio and President Rodrigo Chavez discussed illegal immigration, organized crime, and cybersecurity. The State Department says Costa Rica faces over 100 million cyber attacks every year. Many Central American nations rely heavily on American companies for cybersecurity. Rubio also announced a USAID waiver for Costa Rica. It comes 2 weeks after President Trump froze foreign aid funding across the globe. Rubio's last stop is the Dominican Republic. Rubio landed in the capital Santo Domingo Wednesday. In a document obtained by the Associated Press, the State Department says Rubio plans to announce the seizure of a plane belonging to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The plane is currently in the Dominican Republic. This comes after a U.S. envoy visited Venezuela last week to discuss the repatriation of illegal immigrants from Venezuela and the release of 6 Americans who had been detained in Venezuela. The U.S. seized one of Maduro's other planes last year. The U.S. says the planes, used by Maduro to make foreign trips, are in violation of U.S. sanctions. In another development, Rubio announced Wednesday the U.S. would not attend G20 talks in South Africa later this month. This comes after President Trump criticized the South African government for a new law that allows it to seize some land from owners without compensation. Rubio took to social media saying, quote, "South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, equality, and sustainability, in other words, DEI and climate change."
Also, the first flights to transport detained migrants to Guantanamo Bay have begun. President Trump is planning to send up to 30,000, in his words, criminal illegal aliens to the facility. Let's expand the conversation around this with Rick De La Torre. He's a former CIA senior operations officer and the senior vice president of strategic risk intelligence at Continental Strategy. Good morning, Rick. Thanks for joining us this morning on this topic. Now, analysts actually see a bunch of issues. For one, there might be legal challenges, but also there might be no exit strategy, meaning once you put the people there, it's difficult to get them out, and the U.S. will have to pay for them in the long term. Now, I'm wondering from your perspective, an intelligence perspective, what was the first reaction you had when you heard about Trump's plan?
Well, I think it was long overdue, really. What you have is a processing issue, right? If there are millions and millions of illegal aliens in the United States, and a subset of those millions are criminal aliens who have either been convicted of or are wanted for or have orders from a court to be expunged from the United States, you have to process them somehow, right? So this is a very humane way of focusing these folks into a processing center where then there they could get the attention they need and then moved on to their original countries. The facility itself, it's done this before. It was originally built to handle Haitian immigrants back in the 1990s. And even the Biden administration actually used the facility too, obviously with smaller numbers. But what the 10 that were just taken to Guantanamo Bay are actually the worst of the worst within our country. These are hardcore felons that one should never have been in our country, and now we want to process them out of our country. So we have to do that in the correct way. If we left them within local jails or local or state correctional facilities, that actually creates additional risks in certain ways for law enforcement.
Right, and unfortunately we're a little bit tight on time, I hear, today, but I want to get in some more questions before we have to go. So there is a migrant operations center at Guantanamo Bay where intercepted illegal migrants are being held. And now Trump wants to send 30,000 more, though. I'm wondering, based on your knowledge, is this realistic?
Oh, yeah. That facility could certainly house 30,000. And again, it's not going to be permanent housing. It's more of a transfer station. It's a processing facility, really. To get folks lined up. If you're criminal and violent, there's one section for you. If you're just a regular person who shouldn't be in this country, but you've committed a crime, possibly not a violent one, and you've been ordered out of the country, there's another facility for you.
Right. And also quickly, because we know that one group is certainly raising the most concern, which is Tren de Aragua. They also had a full-blown party with 50 arrests that were made. How much has this group grown in the past, for context, and what is your biggest concern there?
Yeah, they have grown like fire within the United States. Prior to about 2 or 3 years ago, they were mostly known throughout sections of Latin America. They originated in Venezuela, and they're known for their human trafficking, drug trafficking, murder for hire, shakedowns, confidence scams. They are a cancer. Once they get into a community, they set up roots and they run a criminal enterprise within that community. It's horrific. They make MS-13 look like Boy Scouts. The 10 that were rounded up and were the first to arrive really are the worst of the worst.
Right. Well, that's definitely concerning. Thank you so much again, Rick De La Torre. I really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
And we are now turning to President Trump, who is speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast right now, where leaders in D.C. unite to pray and discuss religion.
And he's always the first one there. The work he does his father's very proud of him, I can tell you that. But Billy Graham was very special. One floor below us, Reverend Graham's statue stands with an open Bible. The page turned to a letter from the Apostle Paul, which reads, "Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." Never give up. Never, ever give up. You can't. How about me? If I would have given up, I would not be here right now. Who the hell knows where I'd be? It might not be a good place. If it was up to the Democrats, it would not be a good place at all. Never, ever give up. There could be no better message for the leaders gathered here, and you are real leaders. And we must never give up, and we must never grow tired. We must never grow weary, and we always must practice good. As you know, last week, only a few miles from here, our nation witnessed a terrible tragedy when 67 people were killed in a horrible accident near Reagan Airport. As one nation, we take solace in the knowledge that their journey that night did not end in the icy waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a very loving God. None of us knows exactly when our time on earth will be over. You never know. A truth I confronted a few short months ago when there was an incident that was not fun. It was not a good thing. But God was watching me. The chances of me being here, my sons are shooters. They're really good shooters, Don and Eric. And they said the chances of missing from that range with that gun are, but Don equated it to a 1-foot putt. That's pretty bad. 2 feet I can see missing, but 1 foot you can't miss. It was the equivalent of a 1-foot putt is what he told me. He said, in fact, he gained some religion. He went up 25%. And if you know him, that's a lot. But he said there had to be somebody that saved you, and I think I know who it is. And he looked up, and I said, "Whoa, Don, you've come a long way." He's a good guy, but my 2 sons just really couldn't believe it. Had I not turned that right turn just at that time, and the audience, 55,000 people standing this way, there were just a few people in the back on the bleachers. There was nobody over there except for my all-time favorite chart in history, a chart on immigration. Immigration saved my life, see? So we're going to be good for immigration, okay? But had I not made that turn, boom, and quickly, it was almost as though a deer bolted. You know, they say the only way you miss when you're a good shot is if it bolts. I bolted. I turned to the right to look at the chart, and I said, wow, what was that? What was that? So you never know, but God did that. I mean, it had to be. The chances of turning, there's no reason to turn to the right. You know, the chart is rarely brought down. I brought it down maybe 20%, and 20% of the time. And it's never on my right, it's always on my left. And it's always at the end of the speech, never the beginning of the speech. And if I was a little more than that 90-degree angle, it would be no good. And if I was a little less, it would be no good. It had to be perfect. Thing went right along the edge. It didn't affect my hair. Can you believe that? Might have touched it, but not where it counts. Not the skin part. But honestly, it changed something in me. I feel even stronger. I believed in God, but I feel much more strongly about it. Something happened. So thank you. Thank you. But that event, like the tragedy last week, should remind us all that we have to make the most out of every single day that we have. Who would think that you're in space and 2 things collide? The odds of that happening are so small, even without proper control. We should have had the proper control. We should have had better equipment. We don't. We have obsolete equipment. They were understaffed for whatever reason. I guess the helicopter was high, and we'll find out exactly what happened. But the odds, even if you had nothing, if you had nobody, the odds of that happening are extremely small. It's like, did you ever see, you go to a driving range in golf and you're hitting balls, hundreds of balls, thousands of hours. I never see a ball hit another ball. Balls going up all over the place. You never see them hit. It was amazing that could happen. There was a lot of mistakes made, and it should have never happened. But regardless of that. It's amazing that it happened. And I think that's going to be used for good. I think what is going to happen is we're all going to sit down and do a great computerized system for our control towers, brand new, not pieced together, obsolete like it is land-based, trying to hook up a land-based system to a satellite system. And the first thing that some experts told me when this happened is you can't hook up land to satellites and you can't hook up satellites to land. It doesn't work. We spent billions and billions of dollars trying to renovate an old broken system instead of just saying, cut it loose and let's spend less money and build a great system done by 2 or 3 companies, very good companies, specialists. That's all it is. They used 39 companies. That means that 39 different hookups have to happen. And I don't know how many people of you are good in terms of all of the kind of things necessary for that. And it's very complex stuff. But when you have 39 different companies working on hooking up, different cities at different people, you need one company with one set of equipment. And there are some countries that have unbelievable air controller systems. And bells would have gone off when that helicopter literally even hit the same height because it traveled a long distance before it hit. It was just wouldn't stop. It was, follow the line. But bells and whistles would have gone off. They have them where it actually could virtually turn the thing around. It would have just never happened if we had the right equipment. And one of the things that's going to be, I'm going to be speaking to John and to Mike and to Chuck and to everybody. We have to get together and just, as a single bill, just pass where we get the best control system. When I land in my plane, privately, I use a system from another country because my captain tells me, I'm landing in New York and I'm using a system. I won't tell you what country, but I use a system from another country because the captain says this thing is so bad, it's so obsolete, and we can't have that. So we're going to have the best system and a lot of money, but it's not that much money. And it'll happen fast and it'll be done by total professionals. And when it's done, you're not going to have accidents. It's just they're virtually not possible to have. Each of us is blessed with a precious chance to help lead America to renew our pledges of faith and everything else and bring us to new heights and create a future of promise for our people and for ourselves. We have the most important people in the country in a true sense here because you're the ones that are going to make the decision. You're the ones that are leading us into so many different things, whether it's the right air control system or the right size military or what to do and what not to do. Most important people. And many of you are very religious. I know so many of you are very religious. And I just think that our country has been so badly hurt. We're very hurt by what COVID did to religion. It really hurt it badly. People couldn't go to church for a long period of time. Even going outside, they were given a hard time. And I'm not blaming anybody for that, but it was very hard to gather. So they start using computers, if that. And when they come back, it's just, a whole new experience they have to get used to. But it is starting to come back. We had a fantastic thing happen yesterday. The Army had the best recruitment numbers that they've had in more than 15 years. They think it could be 25 years, actually. They're going to probably put that out, but more than 15 years just now. And we were worried about it. We were talking about it numerous times that, we don't have people joining our military services. We don't have people joining our police force. We have to cherish our police. It's so dangerous. You open a car and somebody starts shooting. They have blackened windows. You don't even have any idea who's in the car. Oftentimes they have the dark windows, which they're not, in theory, supposed to have, but they have them. The door opens and a gun is pointed at your face, and you can't do a thing about it. It's just nothing you're going to do about it. Your friends will take them out. This happens so many times, but it's such a dangerous thing. We have to cherish these people. So today we join our hearts and prayers and recommitting to putting our country first. We have to put our country first, making America stronger and greater and more exceptional than ever before. And we have to make religion a much more important factor now. We have to make it an important factor. And if we do that, it's going to be, our job is just going to be much easier. It unifies people. It brings people together. Democrats are going to be able to have lunch again and dinner with Republicans. And I remember just as growing up, I'd see, I revered senators and congressmen or something very special, but they were out to dinner all the time. We had an old congressman, maybe some of Cy Halpern from Queens, and he was a friend of my father. But he'd have dinner with, he was a Democrat, he'd have dinner with Republicans, and he'd be out, it wouldn't even make a difference. Today, it's like shocking. And it shouldn't be. You have to get together. We really have to get together. We all know what's right and what's wrong, and there's going to be compromise on both sides. But we have to just do the right thing, and we have to get together. You did it with Marco Rubio. You got everybody who was 99 votes, and the only vote was our VP, who maybe we should have been there just to make it 100. But I think I would have been angered if it was 100. That might be a step too far, right? But no, it was great to see a vote. Pam Bondi had support from Democrats, and some of the others had some pretty good support. So, it's doable. We had a recent bill having to do with a very beautiful young lady who was killed from Georgia. And that bill was very bipartisan. It was a very beautiful thing to watch, actually. And so I think we just have to, if possible, we have to unify. There's big division. I mean, some people want an open border and some people want a closed border. We want it closed and they want it open. And that's a big difference. How do you solve that problem? It's a big difference. Some people want men and women's sports and some people don't. And I was with somebody yesterday who was so upset that the bill was signed where men cannot participate in women's sports. And I said, he's a very smart guy, went to a great school, was a great student, and he actually feels, that should happen. Men should be able to play, meaning transition into women's sports. And you talk to him and it says, I don't understand it. I don't understand how the problem ever got started in the first place. It just seems so simple. But he's a good person and just believes it. He just believes it. Not going to be easy to convince him otherwise. So where is the middle ground? It's hard to have a middle ground. There's two ways. I mean, you can either do it or you can't. But I think a lot of good things are going to happen. A lot of people might be surprised to hear me say that of all people, but I think a lot of good things are going to happen because our country's got some big headaches, but we have tremendous spirit right now. The spirit is as high as it's been. It was up 49 points this morning. 49 points. It's the biggest increase in the history of whatever the poll was. So the spirit is there. That's a big factor. That's probably the hardest thing to get back, to be honest. The rest is easy. So I want to just thank you all. I want to congratulate a lot of the new members. I see so many of you that ran great races, David. That was a great race. But so many that ran great races. And on both sides, you ran some incredible races. So it's good to be with you. And God bless everybody. We want to come together, and the happiest person, the element, the everything that's going to be happy. People of religion are going to be happy again. And I really believe you can't be happy without religion, without that belief. I really believe it. I just don't see how you can be. So let's bring religion back. Let's bring God back into our lives. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you.
And we just tuned in to President Trump speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast, where he shared his experience saying that God saved him when he was almost assassinated, as well as the importance of bipartisanship and spirituality in America.
That's right. He said that on a stage, this is the National Prayer Breakfast, which is a bipartisan tradition for almost 70 years, a yearly tradition. And he did share the importance of religion and that in his eyes, it would go a long way in a more friendly togetherness between Republicans and Democrats. We're moving on here in our show to a French Heritage Association. It is suing to stop Notre Dame's new contemporary stained glass.
The stained glass is backed by President Macron, but it faces opposition from associations and even the Ministry of Culture.
Critics argue it disrupts the cathedral's heritage and its beautiful aesthetic.
NTD's international correspondent David Vance reports from Paris.
1,300 craftsmen, including painters, architects, woodworkers, tile makers, had to follow strict guidelines to restore Notre Dame's beauty and preserve its authenticity. Some said their best work is when people cannot tell the difference between the restored parts of the building and the original ones. However, one change has been introduced to the cathedral: contemporary paintings facing the original ones. Soon, all 6 stained glass windows on the east side of the cathedral will be replaced with contemporary ones. The decision to replace the windows was made by President Emmanuel Macron and approved by the Archbishop of Notre Dame. Several associations, government-funded agencies, and the Ministry of Culture have opposed the project. The president of a Heritage Preservation Association, Julien Lacaze, is taking legal action.
Our legal action is provided for in French law. The first thing we criticize is the public institution in charge of Notre Dame Cathedral, which is overstepping its remit. A law that has been passed to protect the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral and the original stained glass windows are protected as historic artifacts. Notre Dame administration doesn't respect the rules.
The cathedral has undergone many changes throughout its 1,000-year history, often driven by kings or the French administration. One man in particular is credited for the 19th century modifications, Eugène Viollet-le-Duc. He worked on the cathedral's modern architecture, including the spire, the statues of kings at the forefront, and the stained glass windows.
The stained glass windows from the Middle Ages were destroyed in the 18th century to let more light into the cathedral. And in the 19th century, based the drawings he'd made, Viollet-le-Duc reconstructed the stained glass windows according to Middle Ages designs and ideas as they were imagined at that time.
Lacaze argues that Viollet-le-Duc's work on the cathedral should be preserved.
When you enter the cathedral, you don't immediately notice the most impressive stained glass windows. You walk past beautifully crafted, colorful stained glass, leading up to the breathtaking rose windows on the right and left. This progression enhances the experience. Installing contemporary stained glass on one side would disrupt this beautiful design.
According to the specialized media outlet La Tribune de l'Art, the decision on the new windows is still pending. David Vance, NTD News, Paris.
And coming up, runners from around the world gather in Copenhagen to celebrate a Danish festival with a half marathon filled with pit stops at 9 famous bakeries around town. Stay with us.
امای داعش کردی آن برانبر خوشکو دایکانی ازدی اما کاری که دور دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارو خی که است های به تایبت لایرا خوشکوریا بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهر فيدان نبو باوان رحم نبو
ودمنا سؤالان من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس نا ما go بس ناش بيجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرن تي حملي زارود الدم واسسيبان همو جيبرن
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که اما نه روزانه دست فروشیده
اليوم التوزيع
imagine being a child, you know, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back. Hundreds of football fanatics descended on the NFL Super Bowl Experience fan zone at the Convention Center in New Orleans yesterday.
That's right. Fans donned their favorite team jerseys, walked the floor, and participated in NFL skills drills.
Oh, it's great, man. Get to have this type of experience, you know. Take the family out, let them have fun. It's always great to have a Super Bowl. You get the best of the best come play in your hometown, you know. It's a great experience.
Because if they win, it's going to be 3 times in a row, and also I like them, and I just really, because they have Mahomes.
I'll be pulling for the Eagles because of the NFC. My little boy wants Chiefs to win because he loves Mahomes, but I'll stick with the NFC.
It's been awesome the whole time. Yesterday, me and my son got to go hang out in the French Quarter for a while, do some tours, eat a ton of great food, and then we've been here today. So it's been amazing.
The Kansas City Chiefs are making their 5th Super Bowl appearance in just 6 years. They aim to capture an unprecedented 3rd consecutive championship. They'll face the Philadelphia Eagles for the 2nd time during their current run.
Tourism officials expect around 200,000 visitors to come into the city for the week-long celebration leading up to the game. The events will include a Mardi Gras-style Super Bowl parade through the French Quarter on Saturday morning, and that will feature the famed Budweiser Clydesdales.
Also, move over experts. The winner of the Super Bowl has already been chosen.
Oh my goodness, not by sports analysts, but by a pride of lions that were rescued from Ukraine.
These football gurus made their choice in an unorthodox way by knocking over a toy goalpost. The obvious interpretation, the Chiefs will crush the Eagles this Sunday.
These 4 lions arrived at the Wildcat Sanctuary in Sandstone, Minnesota 3 years ago. They were found as cubs in a duffel bag at a train station in Ukraine. According to the sanctuary, they've taken to their new country with gusto, and that apparently includes adopting America's most popular sport, football.
Why do we still watch the show then? When my husband is going to ask me this weekend, I'm going to tell him I know the result.
You know the result, and you should just tune into these big cats running around in the snow playing with these goalposts.
Yes, I will send him a link of this exact story. No, of course. How would you fuel yourself for half a marathon? An energy bar, some electrolyte drinks, how about some cream cakes?
It sounds good, and runners from around the world gathered earlier this week for a bun run in Copenhagen in anticipation of the Danish festival of Fastelavn.
Everybody from abroad knows the Copenhagen bakery scene, and Fastelavn is a big thing in Copenhagen. We're doing a selection of 10 bakeries that we really, really like and that are doing 10 Fastelavn bun that we really think that everybody should try. By coincidence, we did the route between the different bakeries, and the route was exactly 21.1 kilometers, which is the exact distance of a half marathon.
It's the most ridiculous event in Copenhagen, so of course we're in for it.
Yes. In just one day, more than 3,000 people signed up. Only 100 lucky applicants were allowed to take part, though.
The run has 9 stops at famous bakeries around town. Participants train not just to run, but to run and eat at the same time.
I wonder what they're actually there for, if it's the running or if it's the eating.
You hear about carbo loading for big athletic events, but I'll say when I go for a run, my stomach kind of shuts down. So I think this would require a very special type of training, and I think I might want to sign up for this next year.
Yeah, sounds like a fun training. And also the bakeries in Copenhagen, they sound amazing. I think they're I don't know, I love them. They have a really good reputation.
So eating baked goods should now be a part of our training regiment, I guess.
Let's do it. I have no objections. We're wrapping up our show right here, though, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD News today at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's still coming up.
And you can always visit us at ntd.com for round-the-clock news coverage or download our app.
Also, don't forget to follow us on X. That's at NTD Good Morning. Thank you for watching now. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Carrie Dunst. Have a wonderful day.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message